After the weekend parliamentary elections, Georgians are waking up to a new reality of their country possibly falling into Russia's event horizon, as the Georgian Dream party is deemed to have won the election. Georgia's President Salome Zubarashvili, one of the government's greatest pro-EU advocates, refused to recognize the results and called upon fellow Georgians to protest. Meanwhile, Hungary's Viktor Orbán made his way to Tibilisi to congratulate and legitimize the election, which many international politicians refused to accept. Joining me now to discuss this is Alex Crevaux-Asatiani, Deputy Director for Foreign Affairs for Georgia's United National Movement. Good evening and welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good evening.
So Georgia, with everything that happened during last weekend's election, is the Western Dream beyond recovery? And how far is actually Georgia from the EU accession now?
It's absolutely not beyond recovery. Now, the most important thing is that we, the Georgian people, who already have said that we will not recognize whatever reports the Central Election Commission published on Saturday, as has done the president of Georgia. The most important thing is that we do not stop the momentum that we gained today. Close to 100,000 people protested, which is huge. For a small country like Georgia. Now, the most important thing is that we keep this pressure on the government, which is now illegitimate, going. Why? Because we know that the Western partners of Georgia care a lot about Georgia, but they will only intervene if they see a strong determination by the Georgian people. That's what we saw during the spring protests. America, the European Union, and European individual member states only intervene when they see that the Georgian people are ready to protest and to defend their democracy. That's what we're doing right now.
So there was a joint statement.
To respond to your second question about European integration. Right now the most important thing is that we understand that the European Union will not open accession talks under this current Georgian Dream government. They've already made that really clear, but that's okay, because very soon we will change the government. We will have a democratic government elected by the people, and we'll open those accession talks very soon.
So according to a joint statement which was issued and signed by more than a dozen of European and Canadian politicians, be it chairs of parliamentary foreign affairs committees in Germany, Lithuania, Ukraine, Ireland, vote had been neither free nor fair, and against this background the European Union cannot recognize the results. Do you think that at this point the opposition of European and international politicians could actually lead to another parliamentary vote taking place anytime soon?
Yes, absolutely. Because remember that Georgian Dream is a party that cares a lot about its financial standing. Bidzina Ivanishvili, the Russian oligarch, who also happens to be a French citizen, and that's something we need to remember to remind that to Paris, cares a lot about his money. And now the next step that needs to happen is international sanctions, not against the Georgian people, not against the Georgian economy, but against Bidzina Ivanishvili himself and against Georgian Dream leaders. The moment that they see that isolation, they will immediately move to try and change things. What we're calling for right now is a completely new election under international, not observation, administration. The reason why is because we know we've already dealt with the international observation. It's not enough to counter the amount of fraud that we saw, the amount of ballot stuffing, the amount of violence that we saw. That's not something that individual European politicians observing the elections can change. We want full new elections under international administration, and we're confident that if the pressure begins in Brussels and in Washington, we know that Georgian Dream will walk back. It's done that in the past. What's important is to remember that Georgian Dream needs that pressure constantly on its shoulders. Otherwise, it will continue to do the wrong thing and to lie to Europe.
In an alternative reality, if another round of parliamentary votes would not be to take place, are we to expect a similar dynamic between Georgia and Russia as we can see between Russia and Belarus as of now? Do you think that this is the event horizon that I mentioned in the intro before that Georgia could be possibly falling into?
Absolutely. We're talking about an axis of evil that has set up around the world where authoritarian states are becoming more and closer to each other. We're talking about Iran, we're talking about North Korea, China, Russia, Belarus. And yes, Bidzina Ivanishvili's Georgia will absolutely be a full member of that. There's no other way, because Bidzina Ivanishvili is someone that has a lot of financial interests to the Kremlin, and it's just a natural progression for unfortunately for Georgia, unless we manage to defeat them. This is why, and that's extremely important to underline. The Georgian people understands this. It's not like during the spring protests where after that we stopped the protest because we were getting ready for the elections. We know that if right now we don't defeat Georgian Dream, if right now we leave any respite and we decide to regroup or anything, we know that democracy in Georgia will be over for a generation or 2 generations or even more, because there's no walking back from this. This is the ultimate battle for Georgian democracy, and it's not me just saying a hyperbole. The president is saying the same thing. Every opposition party is saying the same thing. Civil society is saying the same thing.
This is truly a terrifying concept. As of 7 p.m. local time in Georgia, there was a massive protest, which we mentioned in our service earlier today, which you mentioned speaking earlier today. If things got heated and there would be a clash between Georgians and the authorities, do you think that Russia would actually try and intervene in any way, shape, or form?
So we don't believe that the situation will ever get as bad as a clash. We will probably see in the coming days some attempts by law enforcement to attack protesters, peaceful protesters with water cannons, etc. But we need to remember that this is a small country. Every Georgian knows each other. Georgians in the special forces know Georgians in the protest ranks and vice versa. So we don't believe that Georgians will ever take up arms against other Georgians. That's just a very science fiction scenario for us. We don't see it happening and getting that bad. We're confident that because Georgians will be able to, at the end of the day, talk to each other and together get rid of Georgian Dream, we know that it won't give any opening for Russia to intervene. Russia is way too busy, unfortunately, invading Ukraine. Right now it has to take troops from North Korea because it's running out of its own citizens to kill. Right now, the occupied territories of Abkhazia and Skin Valley, the Georgian regions that are occupied by Russia, are seeing their own Russian bases being emptied to take people to redeploy troops to the Ukrainian front. We don't believe that Russia has the actual energy to look at Georgia. This is why right now is an amazing, unique opportunity for the Georgian people to take their future back.
So last but not least, Viktor Orbán, he's visiting Georgia to congratulate the leader of the Georgian Dream. Is it safe to consider that Orbán's visit is a sign of a serious rift within the European Union? Because the Georgian elections go far beyond Georgia. They also will affect, in a way, the European Union.
Absolutely. Viktor Orbán is someone everyone has known is very problematic for European cohesion, for the European determination, especially against Russia. Now what he's done is he's openly endorsing authoritarianism in the European neighborhood. He's openly endorsing the end of democracy in the European neighborhood, and that is a very scary premonition for what might happen inside the European Union if he's allowed to continue. There's only 4 countries in the world that have recognized the legitimacy of these elections, of these so-called elections. We're talking about Hungary, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia. It's very unfortunate. Some countries were a lot more disappointing than others. We're expecting Russia to say that these elections were legitimate because they're counting on Georgian Dream for their own interests. We were not expecting Armenia to do that. That's very unfortunate. But Hungary was one of those states that we were expecting would support Georgian Dream. We know that Viktor Orbán has deep financial ties to Bidzina Ivanishvili's regime. We know that's been going on for quite a few years. And the one good thing is that we also know that Bidzina Ivanishvili is not capable of building himself a network in Western countries bigger than just Viktor Orbán and pro-Russian parties.
Alex Crevaux-Asatiani.
And another one more thing I want to say is that today was a beautiful scene that we saw at the hotel of Viktor Orbán when he was coming out of the hotel. There were hundreds of protesters gathering him and booing him, and that was just a beautiful sight to see.
Thank you so much, Alex Crevaux-Asatiani, Deputy Director for Foreign Affairs, United National Movement. Thank you for joining. And so this would be all the latest news for now here on World News Tonight. Please stay tuned here on TVP World as we will be back with more news and features.